Hi, I'm Emily, and I will have been the previous editor-in-chief when you're listening to this. First, I just want to say a big congratulations for getting this role, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Here are just a few tips I've compiled for doing the job. The first piece of advice I would give is to paste articles into Notes or Microsoft Word to edit them beforehand. This way, you don't risk losing the main body of work when you're pasting it into the main newspaper. Secondly, I would suggest making a brief plan of your page order and layout beforehand. This way you have a vague idea of where you want to go with it before diving straight in. Making a template that can be reused each month saves a lot of time. This way you can paste your new articles into the same template each month rather than making it from scratch each time. Don't be afraid to experiment with colour and layouts. Borrow ideas from other examples. For example, I often use Pinterest or Google Images to look through previous work that people have done and to look at layouts that might be interesting and compelling for our readers. As for software, I personally use Procreate on an iPad. However, similar tools and features are available on software like Adobe InDesign, CorelDRAW, or whatever you prefer. Krita is a free application with some very similar tools to Procreate that can be downloaded onto a PC or laptop. Despite the differing features, the premise will always be the same. For example, I have a brush at the top here, which allows me to pick which tool I'd like and then create marks. This is really useful for creating shapes of your own as opposed to relying on Google Images. Then I have a smudge tool here, which allows me to create further texture and change the lines that I've made. There's an eraser tool, and there's also layers. Layers are really useful to knowing where your background is and also making sure that work won't be removed completely if you decide to remove only one aspect of it. For example, I have made the template that I always use for the newspaper as my layer 1. That means that it will always be there in the background. I can then add another layer and insert, for example, an image or text. If I insert a photo, I know then that that will be my layer 2. So I can remove that layer if I want to, and I can still have the background there. If I was to draw straight onto layer 1, when I go to remove that line, it will leave a mark, as you can see, in the first layer, which can later pose as a problem. Therefore, it's always good to use layers if you can, to separate your work and make sure that nothing gets damaged in the process. Arguably the most important part of the newspaper is the text. If I go into settings and add text here, you can see that there are a number of fonts, styles and options to choose from. I usually pick this font in a semi-bold or bold for the titles for it to stand out, but now that's entirely up to you. You can also change the sizing here and the spacing. As for a main body of text, there are certain things that can be done to make it look more like a newspaper. For example, if I select the whole of this text and apply this line spacing here, it can look more like a newspaper as it spaces out equally on either side and can fit nicely. You can then make this smaller and create sections that look more like a newspaper. You can put them alongside each other, put them above and beneath one another, and include images to get the newspaper look and feel. Saving your article can again depend on what application you're using. However, on Procreate, I can select the article and click share. I can share it as a JPEG or a PNG, and I suggest doing this so that they can be uploaded as separate images and put together as a PDF. I will select JPEG and save the image. Once I've done that, I can then send it on to Mr. McKay and it can be ready for publishing. I hope this has given you some insight into how I put the paper together and how you might want to in the future. Overall though, it's your path and I'm sure you'll create some excellent work along the way. Don't forget to enjoy it and thank you for listening.